This car is a fake, and it's just insulted my intelligence.
Because this Hyundai Ioniq 5N is full of fakery.
Diffuser, fake. Vents, fake. Engine, fake. More vents, fake. Revs, fake. Shift paddles, fake. Is Hyundai taking us for fools? This is an electric car pretending to be a petrol one. And yeah, I know it's got 609 horsepower and over 700 Newton meters of torque, which is like a Ferrari SF90, but that is an athletic supercar. This is an athlete like a sumo wrestler because it weighs 2.2 tons, which is comparable to a Range Rover Vogue. So it's got all the negatives of an EV and the flaws of a petrol one. So who asked for this? I did, and so did many of you. And of course, there are plenty of reasons to think that this is a serious performance car. I mean, check out these aero pieces. They make the car slipperier and faster. And then there are these tyres. They're Pirelli P0s, but they're bespoke to this car, as noted by the HN stamp. And then there are these brakes. I mean, look at these 6-piston calipers. They are enormous. Plus, you even get some brake ducts to keep them cool. And then there's this rear wing, which serves a real purpose. Although I have to admit, this car is technically impressive, but there is another one out there that does stuff great as well. It's the Tesla Model 3 Performance. But this is where Hyundai does things differently.
And obviously, I don't mean in the design sense, because for a lot less than this N model's 65 grand price, the standard Ioniq 5 packs much of the same sci-fi looks. And that's even true for the bargains that we have on Cinch. I'm talking about something that former BMW M chassis legend Albert Biermann has been consistently good at ensuring since he joined Hyundai. I'm talking about the Ioniq 5N's rich and addictive character.
It simulates the flaws, or as I like to call it, the character of a petrol car. So it means if you're in the wrong gear, well, it will bang into the limiter. Or if you're in too high of a gear, well, then you have to deal with basically no torque. Look, the engine is lugging. It won't pick up even though my foot's to the floor. This has all the character of a petrol engine, and therefore, when you're on it, it's just as rewarding. It even uses the car's regenerative braking to simulate engine braking. And these flaws, well, they make you a better driver because they help with the perception of speed. I mean, that's on the road, obviously, because you can manage your speed. You know, if you're in second gear and it's revving quite high, you're probably near to the national speed limit. And even when you're on track, well, it tells you how fast you need to go into a corner, how fast you should go through it. And I should know, because I've actually jumped one of these at Millbrook. That was air in an Ioniq 5N. Well, it told me, I knew one of the corners was a third gear bend and the other one was a second gear bend. Most EVs, you're only messaging for speed is when you look at the speedo, and honestly, you don't want to be looking at the speedo when you're coming into a corner at 100 miles an hour on a track. Of course, you can, if it's not your cup of tea, turn all of this off and just drive this Ioniq 5N like a normal Ioniq. It doesn't have to make any noises or simulate gears. But Hyundai has put so much effort into making these shift paddles and even the way this engine feels to make it realistic that it is super rewarding. I mean, if you like driving manual petrol cars or even petrol cars with shift paddles like this, you'll probably want to leave it in this mode all of the time at all speeds, because the shift action, I mean, the paddles themselves, nothing to write home about, but the reaction of the simulated gearbox is honestly spot on. It is as good as the top end McLarens and Ferraris. It's so reactive. Before I've let go of the shift paddle, I've moved into the next gear. And then the response of the engine, the way it has that changing torque band, the way it feels like it comes alive as the revs build. It tells me that it can rev to almost 8,000 RPM, and it feels like an engine that's both turbocharged in its massive acceleration, but also naturally aspirated in the way it rewards you to rev it out. It is all the best things and the worst things of a petrol engine, and that's why it is so fantastic. And yes, I know from reading the comments on our videos that this doesn't have a sound that lots of you like. I mean, it makes a simulated engine sound, but it's very gamer. It's like a 90s Gran Turismo game. But I don't mind that, because if it was super realistic, or it was trying to be, well, then there would be just as many people saying, oh, they haven't quite nailed that 4-cylinder turbo sound, or it doesn't sound like the motor it's trying to be. I don't care that it sounds like an arcade game, because this car is an EV that's pretending to be a petrol car. It is a game. The whole thing is fun, and if you're taking it too seriously, well, you've misunderstood it. Although one thing it doesn't treat like a game is handling, because this Ioniq 5N can go around corners. you can really tell that they have developed this thing on the Nürburgring because it has tons of grip, and with an electronic limited slip differential, it also has fantastic traction and it will play with you as well. But what you feel most of all is the fantastic damping that they put onto this car. Hyundai knows what it's doing, not least because of that Biermann touch. He left a team at the Nürburgring to ensure that this car could take on the world's toughest racetrack flat out.
And just like another Hyundai hot hatch to get me properly excited about driving, the i30N, this Ioniq 5N lets you make technical adjustments as you go. At the press of a touchscreen button, you can stiffen the suspension for track driving or soften it up to deal with the bumps of a British B-road.
Plus, you can even tweak the way the engine feels. I mean, you can simulate whether the engine is in a normal mode or a sport mode. So it feels every bit like an automatic paddle shift petrol car, even when you're playing with the settings they give you. It's just brilliant. And some people have jumped into this car before and said the brakes feel a bit weak, but do you know why that is? It's because Hyundai has listened to the drivers and it hasn't made them overly assisted. So you really have to stamp on them if you want to slow this car down. But when you do that, they can bring this car to a stop really, really quickly. This is proper track level stuff, and it will keep going round on circuit or the Nürburgring all day long, or as long as the battery allows you to. And going on track won't even void your warranty because Hyundai is fine with that. They'll keep this car's 5-year warranty even if you spank it on track. But if you're not chasing lap time, at the expense of 200 horses, you can, just like a BMW M X-Drive, disengage the front axle. You can turn off the front motor and make the Ioniq 5N rear-wheel drive, which is great because it lets you do things like this. This car is wild. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, it is genuinely rapid too. I love the exhaust crackles. They are perfectly on time. It's so real. Hyundai, I don't think I want to hand this back.
And that's even true when we take things a bit more seriously, by getting the Racelogic VBox out to test the Ioniq 5's 0 to 60 time, both in its fastest electric mode and then in its simulated petrol mode.
3.2 seconds, well 3.27, but 3.2 seconds. That is quicker than claimed. Whew. Now we're going to try it with the simulated gear shifters. Let's see how that affects the 0 to 60 time. Right, here we go. Oh, sounds like a launch control. It's not night and day, but you definitely lose a bit with that upshift. It's quite realistic. And when you're done shifting your internal organs around, this Ioniq 5N can, at the touch of a button, become just as easy to live with as a normal Ioniq 5. Because, well, while most performance cars will be quite compromised, most performance variants of other models, they'll get firmer riding and they'll maybe lose a bit of boot space. This doesn't, because, well, it still has generous amounts of rear leg room, still has a massive boot, you can still one pedal drive, and you've even got a silent mode with no engine sounds.
And then there's the eco factor, because while I've always loved cars with exciting engines, I also care about the air we breathe. So I've always been a bit conflicted with my passion for cars.
But they've done it. Hyundai has made a car that gets me excited about driving like it's a petrol car, but doesn't make me feel guilty about local tailpipe emissions. Well, aside from the fact that you're burning a bit of rubber and you might be adding a few tyres to the bin now and then. This is a car that drives like a super saloon, but that you can use every day. So for people like me who live in the city but love those B-road blasts, if we could have one car that does it all, I think this has to be it.
The only other EV to make me laugh out loud as much as this one has is the Alfa Romeo Junior Veloce. And if you want to know why, you're gonna have to watch this video over here. And let us know in the comments below if you want us to put one of these up against that Alfa Romeo. But for now, thank you, Hyundai, and thank you for watching.